Generally, Japanese food has a smaller food portion compared to most places. But there are always exceptions. And this time while we are still in Osaka, we are going to look for those exceptions at 3 different restaurants that have their own way to serve giant food. And we will start here. Our first stop is a Katsudon restaurant. Katsudon is a rice bowl, topped with an egg and deep fried breaded pork cutlet. But we are not looking for a regular Katsudon. Here they have a Katsudon which is 5 cm thick and weighs 400 grams. And you can see just how big the meat is. It is covered in panko, a Japanese breadcrumb, and then deep fried. In the meantime, the chef also prepares the egg on top of the rice. After that, he then proceeds to cut the giant pork cutlet. Next, it is drizzled with some katsu sauce, a slab parsley, some nori, and then it is ready. Here we have a giant Katsudon. It might not look that big on screen, so let me just show you how big this thing is. Just look at the marbling and the size. It's beautiful. Whoa. It's really good. It is crunchy, fatty, and it's very juicy. And although it's very thick, but it's very tender. Because the meat is cooked at low temperature for 24 hours. That resulted in this delicious and tender meat. It also has a nice balance between the fatty meat and the lean meat. The lean meat is just as good as the fatty ones because it is very flavorful and it is very tender. Finally, we can see the egg and rice underneath the katsu. So let's use the spoon to scoop it out. Even the rice and egg is really good. It is umami and slightly sweet from the dashi and the soy sauce. Now the real problem is, how am I going to finish this? It's gonna be hard. Luckily I managed to finish it because it was that delicious. Our next place is kinda interesting. There is no name, no banner, or any kind of sign. Instead, they just put various kitchen utensils. They even have a fish tank inside. Even the shop name is quite unique. So it is actually a ramen shop with a big open kitchen, which is pretty rare. They also have a pretty interesting name for their ramen. So here I got the macro ramen, which is what the staff recommended. And it is a clam-based ramen. It looks pretty normal, like a typical ramen. There are bamboo shoots and a soft-boiled egg. But there's something hidden underneath the broth. This giant chunk of pork charsiu. Just look at how big this thing is. It is so big that it is hard to get a hold of. But as usual, let's try out the broth first. Wow, that's good. The taste is pretty mild. It is clean and not overly salty, with a hint of soyu, and it is slightly sweet. Next up, we have the noodle. Oh, the noodle is also good. It's kinda al dente, soft and chewy on the outside, and quite firm on the inside. Let's try the main star of the dish, the giant charsiu. just melts in my mouth. The pork is so tender, with a nice balance between the meat and the fat. And you can see just how easy the meat falls off. While I was eating the ramen, I saw that they keep making this butadon, which is a pork rice bowl. And considering how good the pork was, I decided to get one for myself. A mini rice bowl with some shredded pork, spring onion, and mayonnaise. Oh yeah, that's nice. They mostly use lean meat for this, but it is tender and quite sweet, topped with some mayonnaise. Can't really go wrong with this. Our third and final location is this izakaya, also known as a Japanese bar. They have the typical izakaya menu at night, but during lunchtime they have these giant rice bowls. One is a giant beef rice bowl, and the other one is unagi and tamagoyaki rice bowl, which is what we are looking for. Just look at how massive this thing is. A hand for scale, and it is even bigger than a regular glass. I think it's almost as big as my head, and it's so heavy. They said that the rice is about 750 grams, so the whole thing must weigh at least a kilogram. Now the other question is, how do I eat this? They do provide a small plate on the side. I guess we can carefully separate and transfer the unagi and the egg onto this plate. And we are left with this big bowl of rice. The rice itself is almost as big as a glass. Ooh, this thing is heavy. Maybe let's try the rice first. The taste is pretty light, not as intense as it looks. I think this is just rice with soy sauce. Next, let's try the tamagoyaki. The egg is very fluffy. It is creamy and sweet, just the way I like it. And how about the unagi? Let's try the unagi. The meat is really tender. The skin is quite crispy with a nice char. It is also glazed with a sweet tare sauce. But the only problem I have is, how do I finish this thing? This is how much rice I had left after eating the unagi and the egg. And the restaurant is aware that most people will have leftover rice, so they will pack the leftover rice into onigiri that you can bring back home. It is interesting how Japanese always do things to the extreme. It is either small or big. I guess this will be perfect for those who love to eat a lot, because they are all delicious and not that expensive. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Now I have to find a way to digest all of these calories.